Hi guys, Bobby here from Peak Performance Academy, and today's Coach's Corner we're going to speak about cravings. So a couple of tips on cravings. When you get cravings, it's something that is very, very hard to control. It's something that happens to every single person, doesn't matter how perfect their diet is or their nutrition. It is something that's going to happen. So a couple of tips to help you with cravings. The first thing you'd look at is what's your diet makeup, what's the profile of your diet. Do you have adequate fibre in your diet? Remember, when we eat adequate fibre, which we will get a lot from fruit and veg, we are going to be able to retain a lot of water, and fibre has a very filling effect as such. So a bit more fibre in your diet can really help and keep you a little bit fuller within the meal. And the other thing then you look at is your protein intake. Protein is a food source like meats, fish, dairy, lentils, all that kind of stuff you get. So your protein, your eggs and all that stuff. So with that, if you have adequate protein in your diet, it makes you very satiated, makes you that full feeling. So the thing there is it's going to think of prolonging your hunger levels when you eat a meal. So you're going to feel a lot fuller after a meal, and your blood sugars are going to not decrease as quickly, and you're going to control cravings a little bit that way. So adequate fibre and adding in adequate protein in your diet can really help with cravings. The one thing I would say, a bit of advice towards cravings is, if you have a craving for a certain type of food, you say it's relatable back to maybe the cinema, maybe you walk past the pizza shop, maybe you walk past a coffee shop, and it straight away in your mind, you think straight away of a certain type of food or a smell or something like that. It creates that loop in your brain, and you think straight away about that food, and you want that food straight away, so you start to crave it. So if you can look at maybe there might be certain times of the day, or like I said, places you walk that you can look at and you can say, okay, that happened when I was walking past this shop, or this time of night, or at a certain event. And if I do go, say, to the cinema, I always crave sweets or penny sweets or maybe some nachos or something like that. So then you relate it back to that, and you say to yourself, okay, if it's a certain area, I can control that by maybe having a meal prior to going into the cinema, for instance, that's high in protein and adequate fibre, and that will make you feel a lot fuller going into the cinema, and then you've counteracted that. And then you're going into cinema, you might take some water with you, for instance, or maybe some type of drink that's going to keep you occupied while you're watching the movie. If it's something that you walk past, we say at night time, people really struggle at night time when they go home on picking on for certain foods. When you crave stuff, what I would say to you is, if you actually just take a minute and control the craving, don't go straight for the type of food. Just take that minute, sit back and say to yourself, am I actually hungry and do I really want this food? Or is it just something that's going to reward me? Because when we eat certain types of food, say when you crave a certain type of food, it releases dopamine in the brain. So that's kind of like your happy hormone as such, where you feel, okay, that was fantastic. And the problem is you'll feel good after eating the food, and then after a period of time you start to be down on yourself because you said, I'm after falling off the wagon, I shouldn't have had that chocolate bar, I shouldn't have had that pizza. So that's the problem. So if we take a step back for a minute and we slow the process down, yes, we crave the food and it's really difficult to fight that craving, but if you take a step back and just control it that way and say to yourself, let's just take a minute here and see, do I really want this food? And then maybe if there's a certain time of night that you eat a certain type of food, maybe you might exercise that time of night. You might do some activity that time of night. You might go for a walk that time of night. You might do something there, or you might change your dinner, your profile of your food. Like I said, higher protein, adequate fibre, and that would make a difference to your cravings, because your blood sugars wouldn't be decreasing as quickly after a meal, and your cravings wouldn't come back as quick. So a couple of things you can look at there. You can look at the profile of your diet. You can look at what triggers the craving and see, can you counteract that? Maybe you might have a craving, you might go straight for a walk. You might do some form of exercise. If it's later in the evening, 7 or 8 o'clock, and you're sitting around in front of the TV, you say, no, I'm actually going to go and do some exercise now, and then I'm going to eat my meal. Maybe you might push your meals out later in the day. You might start your breakfast a little bit later and move your meals later into the evening, and that might help you massively. So it's all about how you attack it and manage it, but take a look at it first. Where is the problem? What can I relate it to? Is there a certain action I take that drives me towards these cravings? And that can really help you. So hopefully that will help you guys if you have some cravings. If you have any questions on this, please don't be afraid to ask us. Just message the page. If you like what you hear, you find us on peakperformancecanary.com, all our social media platforms, and also our YouTube YouTube channel, Peak Performance Killarney, and you'll find us on our podcast, which we'll have a new one up next week, Reach Your Peak Podcast. Thanks for listening.